The colony of Orion, 6 clung to life at the edge of known space. Under its fragile domes, crops waved in artificial wind, and laughter echoed faintly in corridors where children chased each other between pressure gates. For a moment, it was easy to believe humanity had escaped its past. Commander Adeel Raza stood at the station's observation window, arms folded, gaze heavy. He had once been a miner, his hands blackened with ore. Now he wore the uniform of responsibility. The sight of the settlers always stirred something in him. Pride, but also a memory. Earth's oceans swallowing coastlines, riots tearing through cities, his own family lost in the chaos. He had sworn that if humanity ever rose again, he would never let them be broken. Not by fate, not by anyone. The alarm shattered his thoughts. On the tactical holo, red symbols bloomed across the orbital grid. One, then dozens, then too many to count. Ships, sleek and angular, emerging from warp like predators scenting blood. The Zerakai Dominion had arrived. "Commander," Lieutenant Samira's voice faltered, her face pale in the shifting light. "It's an entire fleet." Adeel's chest tightened. Around him, the command deck went still, as though even the machines feared what loomed above. Outside, settlers gathered in the square, staring upward. Some cried, others shouted for surrender. "We're farmers, not soldiers. What can we do against them?" He stepped into the square, boots ringing against steel. Faces turned toward him, fearful, desperate. "I won't lie to you," Adeel said, voice steady though his heart hammered. "They have more ships than we can count, more weapons than we can name. But they don't have what we do. They don't have jurat, courage. If we kneel, we lose everything. If we stand, even for a moment, we show the frontier what it means to be human." The crowd stirred, fear mixing with fire. Then the sky itself thundered. A voice like a blade cut through every comm system. "Kneel, humans," High Marshal XY Arthok declared, dripping contempt. "Submit to the Zerakai Dominion, or burn." The silence that followed was heavy. Adeel looked at his people and whispered to himself, "Let them learn what frontier spirit really means." The hangar of Orion 6 had never been meant for war. It was a miner's bay, cluttered with haulers, welding rigs, and rush street cargo drones. Now, under flickering lights and the clang of hurried work, it had become the heart of humanity's resistance. "Commander, this freighter is a coffin," grumbled Engineer Haroon, sweat dripping from his brow as he tightened a line of bolts. "She can barely fly, let alone fight." Adeel's voice cut through the noise. "Then we'll make that coffin dangerous enough they regret opening it." Settlers moved with desperate focus. Farmers stripped irrigation pumps to power jury-rigged railguns. Children scavenged wiring and plating, their small hands perfect for crawling into tight spaces. Mechanics fused mining lasers to turrets, sparks raining like fireflies. Every clang of a hammer, every hiss of welding torches was a refusal to surrender. When the alarm shrieked again, it was no drill. From the observation deck, Adeel watched the first wave descend. Sleek Zerakai cruisers cutting through the void, their hulls glimmering with alien alloys. Plasma bolts seared across the shields, rocking the station. Civilians screamed as the metal beneath their feet shuddered. "Release the decoy freighter," Adeel barked. Out of the hangar, the gutted freighter drifted slowly into the void. To the Zerakai, it looked like debris. They closed in, eager to erase human trash. The freighter's engines flared one last time as the settlers' crude detonators ignited. The explosion lit the void in white fire. A Zerakai cruiser reeled, its hull torn open, spilling flames and bodies into the cold. For a heartbeat, silence. Then, wild cheers erupted across Orion 6. "They bleed," Lieutenant Samira shouted, eyes wide with disbelief. "By God, they actually bleed." Adeel allowed himself a brief, grim smile. "Remember this moment. They're not gods. They're just flesh, wrapped in steel." But even as his words rallied them, his eyes stayed fixed on the tactical grid. Dozens of red markers shifted, tightening formation. The enemy had learned from the ambush. "They'll be back," he murmured, more to himself than to anyone else. And next time, they'll come with fire. The retaliation came at dawn cycle. Zerakai's ships swept low over Orion 6, their plasma cannons vomiting fire into the settlements below. Glass domes shattered like eggshells, crops withered into black ash, and families fled into tunnels as entire sectors burned. The comm channels filled with screams and static. On the command deck, Adeel stood rigid as reports streamed in. Numbers scrolled across the hollow. Casualties, infrastructure lost, domes collapsed. Numbers that were faces he had sworn to protect. His jaw clenched until it ached. "Commander," Lieutenant Samira's voice cracked. "If they keep this up—" "I know." Adeel cut her off, voice hoarse. He didn't need to hear the rest. "If they keep this up, we'll be ashes by tomorrow." He walked the smoking corridors himself. Settlers huddled in groups, their faces lit by emergency lamps. An elder woman, soot-stained and unshaken, clutched his arm. "Don't you dare speak of surrender, Commander. We didn't cross the stars to kneel." Nearby, a boy no older than 18 welded explosives onto a battered drone. He caught Adeel watching and grinned, reckless fire in his eyes. "If it flies, I'll take it right into their flagship." Adeel wanted to tell him no, to say his life mattered more than glory. But the boy's courage mirrored the same raw defiance that pulsed through the colony. Humanity had been scarred too often to die quietly now. Meanwhile, far above, High Marshal HFY Sci-Fi prowled the bridge of his flagship. His mandibles clicked in irritation. Why do they resist? They're outnumbered, outgunned, yet still they fight. His officers kept silent, but he saw it in their eyes. Whispers of human defiance spreading, gnawing at discipline. Back on Orion 6, Adeel stared long at the tactical hollow, the red tide pressing closer. Conventional tactics would end in slaughter. Only madness remained. "The fusion core," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "We can overload it. Turn this station into a bomb." Samira stiffened. "That would destroy everything we've built and save everyone who's left alive," Adeel replied, his voice heavy with iron. The room fell into silence, not of fear, but of grim acceptance. The endgame had begun. Preparations began in silence, broken only by the hiss of welding torches and the low hum of machinery. Every settler on Orion 6 knew what was being built in the shadows. Their last chance, their final gamble. The fusion core deep in the station's heart was rewired for overload, its power redirected into a deadly trap. It would burn away everything they had built, homes, domes, fields, but in return it might cripple the Zerakai fleet. A cruel trade, yet the only one left. Volunteers lined up without hesitation. A freighter pilot with shaky hands muttered, "Lost my family in the bombardment anyway. Might as well make it count." A young mechanic scrawled her name onto the suicide drone she had armed herself. Adeel walked among them, saying nothing. His eyes carried the weight of command, but his silence spoke respect. "Commander," Samira whispered as she fell in a step beside him. If it fails, he said, "we die standing." That's enough. When the Zerakai fleet advanced again, Adeel opened every channel. "People of Orion 6, he said, voice echoing across the colony, "they think we will break. Show them who we are." The comms exploded with sound, not fear but defiance. Farmers sang old earth songs in cracked voices. Children shouted, "We will never kneel." Elders recited prayers and battle cries. Their voices spilled across open frequencies, bleeding into the Zerakai comms. On the flagship, HFY Sci-Fi's mandibles ground in fury as the human chorus filled his bridge. "Shut them out," he bellowed. But his crew shifted uneasily, their discipline cracking under the weight of such unshaken resolve. Back on Orion 6, the trap was set. A crippled freighter, rigged with explosives, launched toward the alien fleet. On their tactical grid, the Zerakai mistook it for debris until its engines flared bright, forcing their flagship into low orbit. Deep in the station, the fusion core began to scream with power, countdown lights flickering in crimson. Adeel stood on the command deck, knuckles white on the railing. "This is it," he whispered. "Frontier spirit. Nothing else matters." The colony held its breath. The fuse was burning. The sky above Orion 6 blazed with alien fire. Dozens of Zerakai warships pressed into low orbit, their cannons glowing, their shadows swallowing the fragile domes below. The colony trembled, but no one fled. Every settler knew the plan, and every heartbeat pounded in unison with the countdown ticking in the fusion core. On the command deck, Adeel gripped the railing, sweat running down his temple. The freighter trap had worked. HFY Sci-Fi's flagship loomed closer, drawn into the kill zone. The moment was razor-thin, balanced between hope and annihilation. "Commander," Samira said, her voice barely more than a breath, "the core is primed. One order, and it goes." Adeel opened the comms, his voice steady, reaching every ear in the colony. "This is humanity's line. If we fall with fire. Raise your voices, Orion 6. What followed was not silence, but a storm of sound. Farmers roared. Children cried out. Old men and women shouted prayers, curses, songs. Across the void, the alien fleet was drowned in the defiance of a species that refused to kneel. On his flagship, HFY Sci-Fi's mandibles clicked with fury as the voices poured through. "Insects," he spat, though his eyes betrayed unease. His officers shifted nervously. Whispers of fear rippled down the line. Then the fuse ran out. The freighter detonated first, slamming into the flagship's flank. At the same instant, the colony's fusion core erupted in a blinding burst of energy. A newborn sun bloomed above Orion 6, tearing through the sky. Alien ships twisted, broke, and vanished into flame. The mighty flagship reeled, its armor split, its engines gutted. When the light faded, silence stretched. Then came the sight every human had prayed for. The Zerakai, fleet turning, limping away into the dark. HFY Sci-Fi, beaten, retreating. On the deck, Adeel sank into his chair, body trembling, spirit unbowed. Around him, settlers wept and cheered, clutching one another in disbelief. Orion 6 was scarred, half in ruins but alive. And in that moment, a legend was born. You can outgun humanity. You can outnumber them, but you will never break their spirit.